theoretically, this is recording now. That sucks because everything that we said earlier was awesome.
Well, our audience just needs to know that it was all brilliant, and now they're going to get a less brilliant version of it the second time through.
You know, technological difficulties for those of you who are just now listening, because this is all there is to listen to. Welcome back. This is episode 170 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As always, technological advancements also mean technological problems, and about 22 minutes and 47 seconds of brilliance just got erased and sent to the ether because that's the way shit works sometimes. I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie, the very frustrated co-host of this podcast.
Matt Trogdon.
I'm Craig Lance.
I thought Craig had quit there for a second. There was a pregnant pause.
I was going to try and say something witty and decided it wasn't very witty and just went on with my life.
Hey, look, your wittiness just killed 22 minutes of awesome. You said something incredibly snarky and it died. Or at least that's what I'm going to tell people because there's no actual audio to refute what I just said.
Something like that.
Welcome back. Let's try this once again. I hope your collective weeks, I don't know what the plural is for that, was as good as mine. I went and got a little shot, so I'm halfway vaccinated. I'm really excited, to get back to some semblance of normalcy. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I got my first shot as well.
Nice.
Got my second, so I'm fully vaccinated. Just got to wait my 2 weeks for the grace period, and then it's just, I'm just going to be making out all over the place.
I was going to say, you're just going to walk down the road making out with whoever you walk by, or what?
Oh man, yeah, handshakes and back rubs all around. Just kidding. Don't take me up on that if you see me.
They still recommend that you wear a mask and socially distance, and I think that's a good status quo, not because of safety, just because I don't want people in my bubble. So that's just me.
Yeah.
The pandemic's been a real good excuse to tell people not to touch me.
Yeah.
Right. People smell so much better when they're 6 feet away from you. Anyway, so I know I've been on spring break this week, and that means that I got a little bit of reading done, and I know you guys got a little bit of reading done. So let's jump kind of right into that and make up for 22 minutes.
Okay.
Just before we do that, let me just say spoiler warnings and all that fun stuff. If check the show notes. We don't really run anything when we come to our short stacks, but just in case, I wanted to throw that in there beforehand. So I'm gonna toss it over to Craig. Lay a short stack on me. Tell me about 3 things you read this week.
Okay. First for me was Proctor Valley Road, #1 by Boom Studios. Grant Morrison, Alex Child, Naomi Franquez, and Tamara Bonvillain. I think. I don't know. Caleb, I think you say it better than me, but whatever. It's a good introduction into kind of an urban legend horror story where it takes place in the 70s, and 3 girls are trying to get tickets to go see Janis Joplin. So they decide to do horror tours out to Proctor Valley Road, which is a place where, they have urban legends about people going missing, so forth. And they get out there with a group of guys and things do not go as planned. Yeah, believe it or not, some semblance of a werewolf or something like that. I also read X-Men numbers 15 through 18 by Jonathan Hickman and many others. And yeah, you can't deny his brilliance, but you can deny that an X-Men book is not the same without X-Men in it. So I am glad we are finally moving towards having X-Men in these books. And then finally, I read what is the end of the first story for Something is Killing the Children. It's issue number 15 by Boom Studios, James Tynan and Werther Deladera. And yeah, like I said, this is either the end of the first story or, it's the end of the book. It's really hard to tell, leaves it open for certainly more stories to be told in this world, and I hope they do. So, pick this up. It's 15 issues, 3 trades. You should be able to get them now, and you should read them if you can.
Nice.
Just in general, how Morrison-y on a scale of a decent narrative to what the hell is happening here is Proctor Valley Road.
It's a good narrative. It
Okay.
really is. There's not any of the Grant Morrison-y whatever the hell he did with the Green Lantern stuff going on in there.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. That makes
It's
me feel
definitely
better.
it's definitely worth picking up.
My short stack is all Marvel books from the current series. I read Maestro, Peter David, Javier Pena, and Jesus Bertoff. Really digging this series. The art is great. The narrative is great. This particular issue is surprisingly violent and bloody, especially for a mainline Marvel book. I've also read from Marvel Taskmaster #5. This wraps up this miniseries. This is by Jed McKay, Alessandro Vitti, and Guru Effects. Really good ending to a really good little miniseries that I enjoyed far more than I ever expected. And I went back to 1977's Marvel Comics group, Conan the Barbarian, #80. This is the writer and editor is Roy Thomas, and the pencils is Howard Chaykin, inks by Ernie Chan. Great classic Conan story, of course. Great classic artwork by Howard Chaykin. In stark contrast to his current style. It's great to go back and revisit that. Never get sick of these old standard Conan stories, man. It's just a great foundation to the current Conan storylines.
Yeah, I've been picking up the Omniboo for all of the old Marvel Conan, including the Savage Sword of Conan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Savage Sword stuff, man. Savage Sword.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at some point I'm going to sit down and reread it all. I'm not saying I've read all of the old stuff, but I've read a chunk of it. But it'll certainly be fun to sit down and read it in order and all of it.
Well, the thing that's cool about the Savage Sword omnibus is that it's not all Conan stuff. Like, you're getting a lot of just those old magazines and a lot of the extra stories that were in there too.
It's at volume 4. So
right.
There's quite a bit in there. So.
Oh yeah. No, there's
no. I'm not. I'm just saying. Yeah, there's a whole lot that they're putting in these omnibus, omniboo, omni something.
Stop it.
Craig is short circuited. You know what upsets me the most about losing that audio that we just lost?
We did 22 minutes worth of work in 5 minutes the second time around.
Well, yes, that it's not nearly as good when we go this fast, but we lost Matt calling him Howie Chaykin about 14 times.
Yeah, that's what his friends call him, Howie Chaykin.
Howie, yeah.
When you meet up with Howie on the weekends, it's great.
Yeah,
that was funny stuff. I was sitting here giggling, and maybe that the tentacle reached out of the ether and took it away.
There you go. Making fun of Matt, that'll do it to you.
That's what happened. And Matt, you're right. His style has changed so much in the years, and we put out an interview with him from a con. I want to say 2 years ago now. That if you can find it on the interwebs or wherever we put it, it's worth watching. It says
it was
a lot
probably from November of 2019.
Back in the day.
That was the last convention we attended as a group.
What's that meme from Titanic? It's been 87 years.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like. But he talks about his history and talks about a lot of the work that he did, and it's really interesting to watch. It was a really, really fun time. It was like I said, it was live at a con. So because I was on spring break this week, I had a little bit more time than I normally do to read. So I went to that, beloved stack of graphic novels and omnibuses and what have you that we all keep around our house. It's stuff that we're going to read, but just haven't gotten to yet. And I pulled some bigger works off of it because I wanted to kind of mow through them. The first one is it's a book called Graffiti's Wall that I'd never heard of before I got this. But the reason I got this is because it's written by Ram V. And Ram V did such a good job. It did such compelling work on his recent Swamp Thing stuff. I was really impressed by it. So I wanted to kind of go back and read some of his prior work. And so this is a book that he did from Dark Horse with Anand RK and a colorist named Bidakar. And essentially it's a 4-part story. It takes place, it's without getting too much into it, it's about these impoverished kids trying to survive street life in Mumbai. One of them is a graffiti artist, the other one's kind of slinging dope, the other one's just kind of a chubby kid who gets made fun of because he's in Mumbai, but he's more so Chinese than anything. And so it's just about them trying to make it through a really low level impoverished existence. It was really good, dude. The art is phenomenal. Anand RK. I went blank. I was going to say who reminded me of.
No one knows what you're saying, Caleb, to answer your question.
Yeah,
that's
you could just make up a name. Art Vandelay.
Go check it out on our Instagram page. I said smart things over there about it. Really cool hip hop vibe to it is what I'm trying to say. This street level hip hop vibe. It was dope. Cool book, man. The other book I read was actually a new book, but it was one of those books that was going to get stuck on that stack because she's thick with 2 C's. And that book is called Red Rock Baby Candy by Shira Spector. And this is from Fantagraphic Books. Basically, it is the narrative of a queer woman who is battling infertility, who is dealing with life as a lesbian, sensuality, sexuality, and eventually parenthood and all that comes with that. Very interesting story. It's kind of the narrative flow is very free thinking. It's essentially just like let me write out this thought process as it comes to my brain, which was really interesting. Parts of it I think were a little bit harder to follow than others because it is such a unbracketed narrative, if that makes sense. But the art is stunning. You guys have read Fantagraphic Books. You know the kind of stuff that they're pulling from. It's multimedic. There are no hardline panels. The style switches up whenever the artist wants to switch it up, depending on what they're trying to convey. It is beautiful. Last and certainly not least is a book that I actually borrowed from one of my nieces to read. They were up for a little bit this week, and we marched down to the Barnes and Noble because we didn't have time to get to the comic book store, which is one of our favorite events. I was very frustrated and kind of sad I didn't get to take them because they love that and I love that. But we went to Barnes and Noble nonetheless. She picked up a book called A Map to the Sun by a writer artist named Sloan Young, Leong. I think it's pronounced Young. I'm not 1000% sure. So my apologies if I mispronounced that. I actually did look up on YouTube and stuff to try to find it, and I just couldn't find out how to pronounce it. But this story it's an all ages book. It's a story about a group of girls who start a basketball team at their high school where there wasn't a basketball team for girls before. And they are all, they're young women of color, they're different descents. It's in California. And it's a story about, building friendships, but just how real the friendships and how important those friendships can be at that age. And it's not all bubblegum and rainbows. They're dealing with things like sex. They're dealing with things like they're changing bodies. The relationship that comes through teamwork, the sisterhood that comes through teamwork, dealing with the fact that the school doesn't want to give the girls team any funding. They the boys team gets all the revenue, they get all the time to practice, and they essentially are defaulted to. So it's embattling that and embattling the fact that each of these girls grows up in a not the best of circumstances. There's some addiction issues that come front and center. There's some, one of the girls has lost a parent at a very young age and is struggling with that. Young girl that gets into some trouble with an older person who has no business putting his hands on a girl her age. There's a lot in this book. Some of the most dynamic color work, just bright pinks, bright yellows, just incredibly striking. So if you can find this, I think it's a relatively newer book. I'm not sure how long it's been out, but this is it. Especially for a teenage to teenage girl, I think this is a really good book. Plus, it's about sports. Arkansas is going to the Elite Eight right now, so maybe I'm in the mood to read about some basketball. So, but it's a cool basketball book, cool sports book. So if you're into the graphic novels of things, you definitely want to check that out.
Awesome,
fun stuff. Enjoyed a lot of those. Enjoyed them maybe more than some other stuff that I read this week. So at this point, we usually jump in and we talk about our roundtable book. And this week is no different than any other week. We got together and and we chose. I think I picked this book out this week, so I'm not 1,000% sure it was me, but I guess I'll take the credit and or condemnation that stems from that. I sent you guys a message and said, "Hey, let's look at the new Alien book from Marvel Comics, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, something by Salvador LaRocca, and then Guru Effects did the colors and some other stuff on the book." So, what did you guys think about this? I'm always curious. Give me the 30,000-foot view of this.
Go ahead, Matt.
I thought it was a good book, especially for a opening issue.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not for me. There's nothing necessarily bad about the book. It's just not anything I'm interested in. Which is weird because I like the movies, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, go ahead.
I thought the story was fun. I thought the story was really it was very much in the vein of what you get, what you should expect from an Aliens book. I am on the record, and absolutely nothing has changed about my opinion of Salvador LaRocca's art. There's only like one person in the business. Like the only good thing when you look at his art is that it's not Kudaransky. That's the only thing I can say.
The aliens were drawn very pretty.
Okay. I just can't with LaRocca. He's but the story.
I mean, I believe in giving credit where it's due, though. I mean,
for sure.
Yeah, the humans not so much, but I thought the aliens looked like typical xenomorphs to me.
I felt like I was looking at light boxes over pictures of action figures. That's what they look like to me. But we can get into that on the back end, because I would rather listen to you talk about praising it than me harshing on it. I'm much more interested in your positive opinion. So what the book is, like a lot of these books, they center around the people outside of the xenomorphs, and specifically family. If you've read any of the stuff from Dark Horse, you've watched the movies, you know that some of the settlements and some of the stories, family and caring for getting back to your loved ones is a very strong theme in a lot of Aliens books, and this book is no different. You've got this individual, this older gentleman who is, he's a very high-ranking defense protector soldier for the Weyland-Yutani Corp, and he's retiring / being forced into retirement is really the vibe you get. He's served his time. This man is a legend among his coworkers, among the other Yutani Corp soldiers. He's done it all, seen it all. He's the kind of person that, the most baddest of badasses, like looks down and watches their feet whenever he walks by. Just to put it in Philip Kennedy Johnson's words. And he is looking forward, I guess, to this next chapter in life. He's got a son that he has become estranged from, that he's been separated from because of work, never really connected to, was even more separated emotionally from after the loss of his other son, which would be his son's brother, that kind of forced that family apart. And so he's looking forward to getting back to Earth and really connecting with his estranged child. And he sets that up. He plans on having a dinner with his kid, but things don't exactly work out the way that he intends it to. The son is a member of call it an organization, call it a terrorist group, call it freedom fighters. I don't know exactly what you call it, but they are very anti Weyland-Yutani Corporation. They're very much for. I guess they're supporters of what's called the United Americas, which is a thing that exists on Earth, but it constantly is battled against the corporate state that exists in this future time. And he is going to take advantage of his father's longing for a relationship, for what have you, because they've gotten some intel that his father keeps a hard drive or some type of disk thing with a bunch of classified information at his house. So he goes there under the guise of meeting his dad, for dinner, going to patch things up and everything. Is just completely cold shoulders his dad, claims to need to go use the restroom, sneaks off and goes rifling through his dad's things and finds the intel. Which he and a group of his cohorts, I guess, form a little strike team. They find a way to get to a hidden base, to this secret, I guess it's a satellite, actually, that is like a science department place, that they think there is some, some type of crypto cyber engineering things happening that is undermining nations and governments on Earth. But what they really stumble onto is the fact that it's a bioengineering lab, and of course Wayland Yutani is doing the Wayland Yutani thing, and they are experimenting with xenomorph DNA, and things go really, really bad from there. As if they weren't bad enough, somebody takes a shotgun to the face, which I thought was the best part of the book. So just straight to the dome. So how as far as the actual story goes, how was that for a synopsis? Did I miss anything?
No, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. Yeah.
I tried to get all of it in there. There's a little bit of a history with the dad that I don't want to get in too much, but the dad has been to some places and seen some things that's going to connect to this story in the future in interesting ways, I think. So
I won't know.
Not you. Oh, you're not staying on the book?
No, I'm not going to stay on this book. It suffers to me in a way that a lot of the intellectual properties do, where they try to do kind of horror genres into comic books. It's a very hard thing to do to get me interested in it. And it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's just not for me. The story was fine. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, that's fair. Which I never knew you to read much of the Dark Horse stuff either. Or am I wrong?
I did
just
not.
Never heard you talk about it.
I don't read. I read very few intellectual property books.
Yeah,
based off of movies, because generally they come in flat to me.
Same here. Yeah.
So, and again, it's not that the story's bad. It's fine, and I'm sure it's going somewhere. I just don't see myself staying on this book. That's all.
Toss it over to you. What about you, Matt?
I'm sorry, what?
I was going to throw it over to you. What are your thoughts on that? Are you staying on the book? Are you checking it out, or?
No, I'm not going to stay on. I don't have the enthusiasm that so many people have for the Aliens franchise. I certainly like the first and second movie. Definitely sci-fi horror classics. There's no denying that. But
right.
I adore the first Predator movie, but there's very few Predator comic books I've read. They're just not. It's just not the same thing and doesn't hold the same level of interest for me. So I thought the narrative in this was very good. I thought it laid the groundwork for the story it wanted to tell, and it finished off. I thought it finished very well, but it's just not a property that I have a lot of vested interest in. So, by no fault of the work itself, I'm just I'm just not going to stay on it.
So I mean, honestly, that's kind of the way I feel. It's just nothing that the creative team did to make me not stay on it. It just didn't grab me in a way that would make me stay on it. Does that make sense?
No, for sure. Absolutely.
Sorry.
I'm not. Don't be sorry at all. I'm a little bit torn on it as to whether or not I'm going to stay on, because I was actually really impressed by the narrative work that Philip Kennedy Johnson did. I think the dialogue, especially, felt natural. It felt real. I read quite a bit of the Dark Horse Alien stuff. It's, and I really enjoyed the Life and Death series, which I think was the last major thing that came out of there. And kind of like Matt said, I adore the first. Actually, I adore the first Predator movie. I have a humorous love for the second Predator movie, just because there are some really incredibly hokey and funny parts in that film. But as far as the comics go, there's very few Predator comics. Even the Predator Life and Death comic have really grabbed me. But Aliens does, in some ways, because more so I think it's a good opportunity to tell stories about people. And Philip Kennedy Johnson does a really good job with that. Especially the relationship between, like, you know, the father and the son. I really enjoyed that part. And the man does his homework. Like, there was a lot of this that you can tell really comes from the source material. I love the way he used the Bishop model android, that plays a really prevalent role in this. And so, you know, you can see the time and the energy that he has invested into making sure that he has this world figured out, and is writing a story that fits neatly. You know, honestly, I think there is nothing about this story that would be apart from the Dark Horse stuff. It all just kind of comes together. You know, it's kind of universal in its storytelling. And then as high of a bar as that was, it's, you know, trip over the bar from the art. I think it's lifeless. It feels stiff to me. Everything feels light boxed. You know, it's like I said, it's kind of that style of Kudaransky art that I think feels the same way. And that's just a personal taste. There are people out there that I know love LaRocca. They think it's a really cool style. And I respect those people, and I'm glad they find something to enjoy it. It's just my personal taste. I don't. It's hard for me to read this book because of the lines that are on the page, and so I don't know. I'm split. I may pick the second one up off the wall. It's not made its way to my pull list yet, though. But great storytelling. Like, I can't complain about that a bit. As far as the narrative goes, it's just, you know, pictures on the pages. Part of that.
I thought the stuff with the aliens was good, but having said that, there's only 4 total pages that have aliens on them. So, you know, art is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
However, you know, whether you're pro that artist or not, it's always subjective. Some of the pages were fine and some of them were not so fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the way I would put this book. But I thought that first double page spread was done really well, and then the page where they're being attacked. Now, as far as the narrative goes, it seemed to jump back and forth a little bit. And that was a little weird because I wasn't quite sure what was going on at one point, but I figured it out. But it was just kind of a little bit jumpy to me. But overall, you know, if it was a property I cared more about, maybe. I do enjoy the Alien movies, but it's not something that I just get lost in. So
you mentioned that first double page spread. There is a figure in that double page spread that I've never seen before.
Yeah, I think it's intended to be a new type of queen xenomorph.
Yeah, she is. I mean, so it's not the queen that we're used to seeing. Like, she's not xenomorphic at all. She looks, you know, she's very humanoid, biomechanical. Almost has this. Almost looks like Hela a little bit with the way that her headdress is.
Yeah, it looks like this is possible, and that's what I mean by the narrative jumping a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this takes place after what happens in the issue.
Yeah,
but it's not real clear on that. And I think that this is a genetically spliced human and xenomorph,
right,
to get this new type of queen. And that may be what's in the holding area that they're protecting.
Yeah.
So
I see that, which is going to be weird. We know that they've done some, you know, at least in the Dark Horse stuff, we know that they've done some splicing between the Predator and the Alien. Yeah, and
right.
You know, gave us the Pred Alien, which is a weird, like, skull-faced oddity. Now
you put these characters into an Archie magazine, and I'll read it all day. Archie vs. Predator was good.
It was ridiculously good. It was way better than it had any right to be. I want to say, before we move on too far, though, the cover art on the book, at least the main cover that I have, was absolutely brilliant.
There was about 6 alternate covers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is yours the one that just has the xenomorph on the front with with its mouth, tongue, head, tongue thing sticking out?
Yes. Yep. The little mandible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one I have too. It's really good as well.
We 3 for 3 on that, Matt?
Matt, I think, has a different cover.
Yeah, I got the Scotty Young cover just for reasons.
Nice. I don't even think I've seen the Scotty Young cover. I thought I saw it put in the title page. I saw that he had done one. I just didn't see it. So you'll have to shoot me a picture of that. I'm curious to know what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll do.
Other folks like Steve McNiven, Laura Martin did a cover. Peach Momoko, who's blowing up and is everybody's favorite artist from Marvel right now as far as covers go, making a big splash. Ron Lim, Israel Silva, Todd Nowak, and Rochelle Rosenberg. Looks like Patrick Gleason, obviously Scotty Young, David Finch, and Frank Diarmata, and then LaRocca and Guru Effects did their own cover. So
here's what I would say about this book. If you're a big Aliens fan, give it a shot and see what you think, because it may very well appeal to somebody that's a bigger fan than me.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not necessarily, there's nothing bad about it. It just didn't suck me in the way I had hoped.
No, like I said, again, you put a different artist on this book and I'll sing its praises. Because I thought the story was great, and I think you're absolutely right. Like, if you're a fan of the franchise, then there's absolutely nothing with this book that you like. It'll just you'll eat it up with a spoon.
Yeah,
it's a good book. It really is. So, don't take my issues with it to heart. No, those are my issues. As always, therapy needs to be a thing.
Yeah, boy, does he have them, folks.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably good advice anyways. Don't take anybody's issues to heart.
That's true.
Don't let other people's issues affect your decisions. But, but you should listen to us about books. And this one, again, is if you like the franchise, give it a shot.
Big facts. Well, what else is going on in the world, fellas?
Lots of stuff going on this week.
Feels like this is one of those good times for a chaos episode.
Yeah.
Well, what a coincidence! It actually is a chaos episode.
Wow! Imagine that.
The stars have aligned.
See how that works.
Lots of stuff happening in the comic book world and so forth this week, huh?
I think my favorite one was the Satan lap dance that happened this week. That's definitely the most important news of the week.
That didn't make the
internet
recut.
was broken.
Yeah.
No, it didn't.
Did not,
and for those who don't know at home, Matt is a big fan of Lil Nas X, so much so that he remembers the names of his songs off the top of his head, which impressed us all. I mean,
These are lies.
Yeah.
giving Satan a lap dance. No, but for real, lots of things happened this week. What do you guys want to talk about?
I say we start with Invincible. You guys good with that?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm real good with that.
Yeah. Do you guys watch the first 3 episodes?
Yeah.
First episode? How far did you get, Caleb?
I'm super caught up, man. I got all
Are
3
you
under my
okay?
belt.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So have either of you read the comic?
I don't know how far I got into Invincible, but I may have read the first arc. It's been so long, I don't recall. But I've definitely not read half of the run, let alone all of it.
Yeah, and I could see how like people might have fallen off of it early, because quite honestly, watching this first episode, I had this thought that, man, I don't remember it being this high schoolish. And it's not. There's a lot of time jumps in the series. So if you start to watch it and you're feeling like, hey, this is a CW cartoon, give it, at least to the end of the first episode. Because if the last 10 minutes of that first episode doesn't hook you, I don't know what's going to in a superhero book.
mean, damn. So
Yeah, right?
I've read the first couple of arcs. So kind of fully know what's happening, where they're going with this.
Yeah.
Don't want to ruin that for anybody who hasn't had a chance to see it yet. But I think I kind of felt the same way. I was watching it first. I'm like, wow, this feels very, I don't want to say immature, but I think CW-ish. Yeah.
So I want to speak to that real quick. I think that is actually displaying the strength in the writing. It's presenting itself as this family-friendly, family-centric CW strong, and that makes the impact of the last 10 minutes that much stronger.
Right.
So where people may initially be turned off or criticize that, the bigger picture is what really delivers the value on that opening sequence. Because I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my God, this is so sappy. Well, I think I'm fully convinced that that's Kirkman's talent at work. He's doing that on purpose. He has very real intent on making you feel that way. So the impact is so much stronger once you get deeper into it.
He absolutely does. And that, like I said, this is not a comic as somebody that's read all whatever, I think it was 126 issues. It is not a comic that it all was a CW sappy type comic. It is very violent, very superhero, very flawed superhero even. There's a lot of good and bad that happens in this. It as Matt said, I think it's absolutely captured in that first episode exactly what Kirkman was trying to do. Because you do feel that way, right? Halfway through, you're kind of like, oh, come on. I don't care about high school, which girlfriend is he going to end up with type stuff, Yeah.
Well, too, and I also think that that's giving you this. It's really good, strong storytelling to give you the narrative arc of the character and how fast he's going to have to grow up. Because when you are seeing him have this, teenage boy, high school drama, girl trouble, which it's the Spider-Man thing, right? Like he's dealing with the end of the world and massive life and death scenarios and betrayal and pain, but also he's dealing with having to get to class on time, having to make sure that Gwen is good, or that when Gwen wasn't good, that everybody else in his life was good. And so it's a really good job kind of recapturing that dynamic. But I think by the third and the fourth by the third episode, that was what we've got right now, you can already see how much he's had to grow up. You can already see how much more mature he was than the first episode. And so I think that creates this really cool dichotomy very early on in the show. Go
ahead. I'm sorry.
I
was thinking about something completely different. Continue your thought.
Well, I mean, that was kind of just wrapping up the thought.
I just realized I was going to say something completely out of context of what you were saying. But one of the things that I loved and I had forgotten about, because quite honestly, the characters aren't in the story that long, is how much the Guardians of the Globe reminded, they were all, analogs of superhero characters from.
Yeah, it's Justice League.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And I mean, do we want to spoil any of it? Do we want to talk about it? Because, I mean, him beating Darkwing to death just fucking killed me, man. Yeah. It just slayed me. And we don't even have to say who, but it just slayed me. I was laughing so freaking hard because it's, the Superman versus Batman commentary,
Right. And just how out of proportion those characters and those figures are. I've seen some fairly violent, fairly brutal cartooning in my short little life, but that might be on the tippy top of it. It was just
the end of that is why I fell in love with Ryan Otley, and I don't remember where he jumped onto the story, but man, being able to draw those kinds of scenes is something that you will continually see that throughout this series. It does not shy away from the violence at all. And I was pretty impressed with the voiceover talent they got in there.
Yeah,
it was good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you know,
really,
they had
really
a
strong
lot
work.
of they had in big names in there too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so Seth Rogen playing Alan the Alien, and you know, why can I never remember his name? The dude, J. Jonah Jameson,
J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, playing Omni Man. Mark is the dude from Walking Dead. I should
you really
I should have looked
it up
this shit up
before you brought it up.
Yeah, I'm just like I knew all their names and I'm just drawing a blank all of a sudden.
Mark Hamill's playing Art Rosenbaum. Yeah.
So really great casting in this series.
Stephen Yeun. Stephen
There
Yeun
we
is
go.
who you were talking about.
Yeah, thank you. And I had them all in my head until I started talking, and they all just dissipated. So just like this show.
I mean, we're not gonna talk about voices in this show without talking about Walter Goggins playing Cecil.
Yeah.
But no, you've got Sandra Oh, who was, big Grey's Anatomy star. You got Zazie Beetz. Gillian Jacobs is in this. Jason Mantzoukas plays Rexplode. I thought that was who that was. Rexplode is such a douche. Jason Mantzoukas does douche really well. Zachary Quinto playing Robot. Just a ton of big names in this.
Yeah, it's all and done really exceptionally well.
How close does it follow the comic book series?
As far as I can remember, it's pretty right on up to this point. I felt like what happened at the end of the first episode was a little bit further in the book. But
I think the first episode was kind of the first arc, if I remember right. It's been years since I read it.
Yeah. But what I remember is it's following it pretty closely up to this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. I want to say the two clones were the first villains, if I remember right. Like I said, it's been a long time. I need to go back and revisit it.
Yep. And that's part of the fun of this is remembering some of the stuff as you're watching it, going, oh crap, I forgot about that. It's been so long since I read it. But the Flaxen invasion and the clones that argue throughout the entire freaking series over who is the original and who's the clone. It goes on and on and on, and it's great.
I was really impressed by the style. It
looks a lot like the comic.
Yeah, they're clean. Such a clean animated style is, that's rare, but it looks really good.
It looks a lot like the comic, and it has a little bit of an anime feel in the cartoon. Not so much so that if you're opposed to anime that it would bother you, but it does have a little bit of an anime feel. But yeah, man, good art, good storytelling. You guys gonna stay on it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally gonna keep watching this. It's just fun. It's really fun storytelling.
Especially that last 10 minutes.
Oh man, just
that had to be your favorite part, right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean it was. It was my favorite part. I mean, for all the reasons I already stated, I was just like, yeah.
It's like
the visual effect, obviously, but also it's like it was my favorite part because it's like, wow, why?
Did they just go there?
Why?
So you probably didn't get far enough in the comic to know what's really going on, would be my guess. So I'm not going to spoil that for you or for any of our listeners, but yeah, it's pretty monumental. So,
it occurs to me, we really didn't do a synopsis. Should we do a brief synopsis just in case anybody who hasn't read the comic or has seen the show knows what they're getting into?
No,
I don't want to spoil any of it. It just came out Friday.
Right.
And it's Sunday. So let's give people a chance to watch it. But it's basically a teenage superhero story.
Right. It takes the best parts of Spider-Man and the best parts of the Justice League and then flips those dynamics on their head.
Yes. Out of my two favorite Kirkman series are Walking Dead and Invincible. And Invincible is my favorite, and for lots of reasons that you'll see as you keep watching this.
And I'm really glad to see. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say I was talking to somebody the other day about this show, and the way I put it to them is, for people that have read both, there are definitely people that say Invincible is they prefer Invincible over Walking Dead. It's that good. That's the way I'm describing it to people that are familiar with the show but unfamiliar with the Invincible comic or storyline. So that's how I've kind of sold people on giving it a try.
I would say in my experience, that is 100% true. And
not 1,000% true. Dead. What are you calling me a liar?
Maybe. No, I'm saying in my experience, it's I find that to be true.
So it's interesting. One thing I'm really glad that they did is they gave a lot of the credit and some of the billing first to Corey Walker. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this or what, maybe I'm just seeing it the wrong way or something, but it's always seemed to me like Ryan Otley got more of the credit for, and maybe he did a larger portion of the work or something like that. I don't know what the numbers are.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like
Walker,
Tony Moore.
Right. Yeah. Corey Walker's a really strong artist. I've always thought he was a good artist. And so it's good to see him getting kind of first billing in that.
Well, it's like Tony Moore on the first trade of Walking Dead.
Walking Dead.
Yeah, they switch, but they're still the creator. You know what I mean? So, and Corey Walker has done a lot of other work with Robert Kirkman over time. I think he was on Astounding Wolfman, if I'm not mistaken. And they did Super Dinosaur as well, which was a kid's book together. But I mean, they should give him credit. He was the creator on it. But Ryan Otley did the lion's share of these books, of this book. Now there was a couple of times that Corey Walker would jump in if they were behind or something like that and help out. But yeah, Otley did the lion's share.
So I wonder what the situation was with that, and if anybody knows, they should totally jump over to our Facebook page and kind of explain it to us why Corey Walker bounced off. Because I know
I think it was a time issue.
Okay, maybe he just didn't sign on for the bulk of the work that he thought that they were doing. I don't know. I know with Moore and Adlard, there was some bad blood there.
I think the bad blood was with Moore and Kirkman.
Right.
Yeah. And then they brought in Adlard to finish up. But either way, they're both getting their credit now. So, which is great that they're, Tony Moore still got his credit for being the creator of Walking Dead.
Right.
So, yeah, good show. Watch it.
Yep.
Now, did either of you, while we're talking about TV, are y'all caught up on? I'm still an episode behind on this, but are y'all caught up on Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Yeah,
I caught up on that yesterday.
How'd that second episode treat you?
Really good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's you really learn why U.S. Agent is my favorite character of Marvel.
Absolutely, you do.
Yeah, as somebody put it, they do a really good job of making you dislike Johnny Walker before you even know why you dislike Johnny Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're making you dislike him with that. And it's everything from his smug little smile to just his cockiness. You just want to punch him right in his smug little mouth, to quote Iron Man.
I always love seeing people's reaction when and I don't ever like being quote unquote that comic guy, but it gives you an opportunity to be that comic guy whenever you're on Twitter, you're on something else, and you see people's reaction to a character like this. Because I've seen several people, kind of like, hashtag not my cat, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, you guys don't know who U.S. Agent is. You've never read the comics.
You don't know where this is going. Yeah,
right. This is totally not a new character. And so if people who are, this is your first introduction and you're wondering what they're doing, you can go find the answers real easy. There's some just Google it, find out where he's been in, and go find those issues. If you have Marvel Unlimited, you can find every appearance that dude's ever had, and you can really hate him.
Yeah, if you
Just
hate
like
him
everybody
now,
else does.
just wait a little while.
Go read that other first issue.
Right.
Won't like him. So I have a question.
Yeah.
How are you guys feeling about paying $6 for a Batman book every month?
Go ahead, Matt. How do you feel about this?
Not good at all. If that happens, I cannot, as I sit here right now, imagine a scenario where I would do such a thing.
Right.
I just,
yeah.
I don't know who they would. I don't know what creative team would compel me to stay on a book that's $6 a month, but I can't think of one.
See, I kind of had a feeling this was coming when they quit doing a bi-monthly book, because they were getting $6 a month for us, but we were getting 44 pages for that $6, because it was $2.99 twice a month.
Yeah.
But now that they've gone to a monthly book for Batman, and let's be clear, it's not just Batman, it's all of their major titles at DC. They're apparently going to $5.99 per book, and some of them $6.99. Sorry, but I'm not paying that for comics.
Did they put out a title list? Because I know that they're doing it for Batman, Detective. Like it seems like it's a lot of the Bat family books. Like I don't think
it's Supes, it's Wonder Woman, Batman, Detective, Justice League.
I like how Craig called it Soups.
Yeah. That's what his friends call him. My coward.
It's Soups and Howie just hanging out together.
Yep.
I don't think it'll work for a lot of the books. I don't think it'll work for Superman. I don't think it'll work for Action Comics. I think you'll see a big drop off for Wonder Woman. I think the fanboy pull is so strong with Batman that I think it'll stick. I really do. I think the numbers will drop a little bit, but I don't think they'll drop significantly. I think people will pay it. And I'm not saying that as a good thing. No, I don't think I will.
For the first time in my adult life, when I've been collecting comic books, I will drop Batman.
Well, and people, initially, I'm sure you're right, Caleb, there's going to be a certain contingent that will stick on Batman, but that will definitely fatigue. Batman is, despite what people tend to believe, Batman is not immune to drop off. I mean, in the character's history, his circulation has dropped significantly because of the way the storylines have been treated.
Recently, the Tom King.
I was going to say that post issue 50 of Tom's run, because his friends call him Tom. They tanked it, and so no, you're not wrong. I do think that you'll see a drop off, but I think if any book can hold it,
it's going to hold out the longest.
The Batman book.
There's no doubt about it. It'll hold out the longest, but fatigue will set in. There's no doubt about it. It's just a matter of how quickly and how dramatic it's going to be.
Did you notice the price on Batman Urban Legends?
I did.
Yeah. Did you, Caleb?
I didn't.
Now, it was a thicker book, but it was $8, and that's going to be the new Bat family book. Because, they're getting rid of a lot of the other Batman titles like Red Hood and those titles. They're all going to be in that Batman Urban Legend book. It's $8 a month. Now, again, it's thicker, but I'm not paying $8 for Bat family books.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that depends on a few things. It depends on, like you said, the page count in the book, because I'm not going to pay it for a, what is it? A 33 or 26 page book, whatever it is.
Yeah. 32 most of the time now.
Right. I'm not going to pay it for that. But if they give me, 60 or 70 pages, I will.
Yeah. But that's 60 or 70 pages, but you're talking about 4 different storylines. And, here's the thing. Here's what it feels like that book feels like. That feels like they're trying to please too many people, and they're going to please nobody, because I don't I mean, there's not going to be a wide contingent of people that are going to actually have a vested interest in all the storylines in each one of those books.
That's right.
You know, it feels like what they're trying to do with Marvel Comics Presents Wolverine with a higher price tag on it. And I don't see how that's going to work. I don't see how that's going to work in a long-term business.
The only way it works, like Matt said, is you have to be interested in all of those characters and interested in reading all of their stories. Otherwise, you're buying it for Red Hood's story or the Outsider story or whatever. And to be honest, I'm not interested in an Outsider story, so that you can cross that right off the top. You know, Red Hood's going to depend on how well it's written, if I'm interested or not. You know, so I just don't see me paying that for a book, even if it's 80 pages. If I'm only going to read one of the storylines out of it.
Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah,
absolutely. And
they would
any
be
given
better
person.
I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Any given person's going to feel that way. I mean, it's just, you know, it just reeks of this trying to please everybody and you please nobody type thing. I mean, because again, everything you said being the case, Craig, on top of it being an $8 book.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you know, for a $4 book, I'd pay that for an anthology book where I can pick out the stories I want.
Yeah, which is the Marvel Comics Presents Wolverine model.
Right.
And that worked for that reason.
Well, and they just did something similar with Superman Red and Blue.
Did they?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the same that's the same thing as Wolverine, Black, White, and Red, just over at DC. And that was I forget what the price tag on that was, but I don't think it was super expensive.
See, I don't remember. I think the Black, White, and Red was only a $4 book, but you know, it wasn't. You did get 4 stories in it, but they were independent stories. You know,
and they were all Wolverine stories.
So they were all Wolverine,
yeah.
And I think that's where this is going to suffer. The reason that some of these books don't work on their own, Outsiders doesn't work because no one wants to read Outsiders on a monthly basis. You know, it's going to work if you do 5-issue runs or something. People will jump on for that, but people aren't going to jump onto a long running Outsiders book. If they were, we would have had that. We haven't even seen that since New 52. You know, so trying to force it into an $8 book so that people will buy it's not gonna. I don't think people will pay that. I just don't.
So I think it does. Yeah. I think it does a little bit. It does one of two things for people who are kind of like me and who still really love the, you know, putting books in your hand aspect. If all of these books go up to $6, which is, you know, it sounds like the main books are, then kind of like Craig said, I'm going to pick and choose my characters. I may very well pay that at first to see what stays running in Wonder Woman because that's my girl. But yeah, I'm not reading Superman as is, so I'm not going to pick that book up. I'm disinclined to keep paying that for the Batman books. So it's really gonna put my focus on the characters that I'm more prone to read anyway, and save the overall money for that. The other thing,
I mean, the trade's going to be $18 for 6 issues.
Well, I was going to ask. I don't know. I wonder what the trades are if they're gonna stick that price just for the trade size, or if the trades will be cheaper. I don't know. And I think if the trades are cheaper, that gives you some insight into the direction that they're heading.
I mean, the trades generally are cheaper. You generally get an extra issue in a trade than if you bought them off the wall.
Well, think about how the trades for a book like Batman Urban Legends is even going to be laid out. I mean, are they going to split these up and you'll have, you know, a 6-issue run and they put all 6 Batman stories together and all 6 of the others together? Are they going to split them all up into different trades?
I would imagine they would have to split them into different trades, but the problem with that is that it's going to prove their model that people don't want to read certain stories out of there.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
you know, what they're trying to do is say, look, we can sell Outsiders.
And, you know, based on the decisions that's been made at DC Comics recently, I would bet that they haven't even thought that far ahead.
I would say you're probably not wrong.
I mean, the decisions being made are just, it's incredible what they're doing over there. It feels like they're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping something sticks, not even waiting to see if it does. It's just crazy what's going on over there.
Well, our buddy Jason Wood kind of has a theory on that. He's from the 11 O'Clock Comics podcast, for anybody who doesn't know who Jason is. But he was talking on his show this week about how there are, AT&T went into a lot of debt when they bought Time Warner. And it really does feel like AT&T is really disinclined to continue, comics in the form that they have been in so far. And so it feels like people at DC are really throwing out, anything they can to try to say, hey, we can do this, to cut the bottom line. We can do this to bring in some revenue. And it's just one of those things like where I don't know, I don't know who makes that call, but it really does feel like they are moving away from the direct market, as it were, and they're wanting to make some changes. And all of this is on the backdrop of, you have services like DC, I think it's DC Unlimited, but Marvel Unlimited, these things that, you can pay a monthly fee the way you do with Netflix and you get everything for that, like $10. It's just you're 3 months behind. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. I think that is moving. I think they're looking at something that they can get some data on. And I think Craig and Matt are both right in that the data is going to show that this is not particularly the way.
So as you said, they spent a ton of money to buy these properties as part of they didn't go in to buy DC. They went in to buy Warner Brothers.
Right.
But because Warner Brothers own these properties, they obtain these properties, but the intellectual property is worth more than the actual value of the comic books to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're making more off of selling T-shirts with Batman logos on it. Deals. Yeah, than they are off of the comic books. So they don't care about the comic industry as much as they do. If they can put out movies to keep that intellectual property alive, that's what they care about.
Yeah, I think if anything, the people up there who, like you said, at the top of AT&T, at the top of Time Warner, who are just looking at blips on spreadsheets, they see this as an IP farm. They see this as an idea factory for things that are going to bring in more revenue. So, I mean,
I think that's the way Marvel sees it. I don't think that's the way AT&T sees it. I think that Disney sees Marvel that way. I don't think that AT&T I think they see the value of the intellectual property more so than they see the value of the comics as an idea farm.
Right, but with that, I mean, there's some.
If that were the case, we would certainly get better movies.
Well,
I think that's a matter of a lack of talent, and structure is why the movies are what they are.
What I was going to say though is with these intellectual properties, you have to do something with them, or the franchises lose their value. So you have to have the Batman cartoon or the Batman action figures or the Batman in the movie.
But they can do all of that. They can do all that without investing this high amount of money in comic books.
Well, the thing is, I don't think they're investing high amounts of money. I mean, I think overall in their spreadsheets, like what actual, like the actual publishing cost of DC is a blip. The problem is it's just a blip, and they're like, we can just kind of cut this completely. They just don't care. So it would be interesting to see what the profit margins are on, because ultimately it's not how much money it makes. They're looking at profit margins. Yeah.
That's the way these big companies look. They don't care if it's 40 small properties making them large profit margins. They're not going to cut anything like that. So I would be interested to know what their profit margins are, and if it's worth it for them to keep comics going from a return on investment type scenario. Does that make sense? Because if it costs them very little to make them, but they're making money, that's a win-win.
Well, it depends. It's ROI,
right?
It's return on investment. How much time and energy and money is being put onto this division, and what's the turnaround on that?
Right.
And any publishing business is not a get rich business. If you're publishing, you're not, by and large, exceptions to everything, yes, but by and large, you're not getting quote unquote rich on the publishing business compared to other business ventures that someone like AT&T has. So it's going to be a small ROI in the overall portfolio. So they're doing things to increase that ROI.
That's right.
And they're being made by people based on everything I've read that don't have a history of doing it. They've got a history in doing other things like video games.
Right.
And that is, and it's obvious in the evidence of what some of the decisions that they're making, that they're just not from the industry, and their expectations seem to be askew. I mean, it's
well, from the outside, you look at the easiest way to increase return on investment is to increase your sell price.
Yes, and they've already slaughtered.
Yes.
You had the DC Day of Slaughter, or whatever it was called, where they just let so many people go.
Yeah.
And them increasing their quote monthly price. I mean, to use a subscription, type terminology. I mean, it all lines up with what they're doing and what their business model for everything else that AT&T does. So that's why, normally I would view, a rumor like this with a healthy amount of skepticism. But in this case, I'm like, that sounds like exactly like something they would do.
It's not all rumor, because I actually looked through DC Connect for that month, for the next month.
Yeah.
And a lot of the books are $6 now.
Yeah.
So it's not even that it's rumor. It's just, it is what it is. It was somebody going through and reading the DC Connect as to what the upcoming prices were.
Well, if you wanted to get me reading tertiary characters and outside of the main books, there you succeeded.
I'll just quit reading DC. There's nothing going on over there right now that's got me that interested, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I've been holding on to any given DC title by a thread. I mean, I'm not. Yeah,
Batman's the only one that somewhat has me. But for $6 a month, I can walk away from it.
I mean, it somewhat has me, but somewhat is in all lowercase letters.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got some hope for some of the stuff that they're doing post the not Infinite Crisis, whatever this little break is. Yeah. I've got some hope in some of the creative teams and stuff. But I mean, that's one of those things. It's love for the IPs and love for the characters to aside. That's this is an expensive hobby. This is no longer the thing you spend your lunch money on. And so it's a legitimate deal breaker for a lot of people. And I think a lot of shops are going to have some trouble moving these any numbers. And what scares me is that they're going to look at something like that and they're going to double down on especially the new people who are looking at the market. Like I said, they're not from comics. They're going to double down on the variant cover ideas. And I really hate that. Like, I really hope they stay away from that.
I don't mind variant covers if they're like Alien this week was, where there's 6 different covers and they're all the same price.
Right. But it's when that they do the whole, and DC is historically better about it than Marvel, putting everything at the same price. But, the whole manipulating sales numbers through variant acquisition is always been weird to me. But, you look at things like even in Kickstarter and independent publishing, there were variant covers of the Keanu Reeves Berserker book that were selling for tens of thousands of dollars. And so I really hope that people who are, if they have not been in the publishing industry long, don't look at that and think that that's where the money in publishing is, in manipulating the market through these variant covers, because that's just the speculation market again. And that's what crashed in the first place. So I don't know. You said, I'm disinclined to pay these prices for what they're giving us, and that's going to change the way I read. And I might have to be one of the people who sign up for DC Unlimited or whatever it is, and just pay $10 a month.
I've been on, teetering on going to the trade market anyways.
Mhm.
And to be honest, this show is what's kept me from doing that. But I'm not real far from that ledge. The pricing.
I'm
not. I'm not
that. You say the
collecting
show
the
is
amount anymore.
right.
So the show is because we talk about current books. So if I'm waiting for trade, I'm 4 or 5 months behind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that has kept me on the floppy market for right now.
Well, first,
And
let me
it's
just
not
say,
necessarily a price thing. It's a storage thing. I'm no longer collecting the amount of comics I was collecting.
oh, bro,
And
if that's the thing that's holding you back, I'd say jump all in. Like you can,
Well-
like we talk about books that have aren't like quote unquote this week's books all the time. So shoot, don't let that change the way, especially if it's going to increase your enjoyment of the way the stuff is being written.
Well, we'll see. I'm not
Yeah.
there yet. It's been something I've been thinking about. And like I said, I've been teetering on the brink. But if they're going to raise the prices to $6-7 a month, that will be what will push me over that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Wednesday Warrior thing is an interesting concept these days. I mean, I really don't know of any other major market in the world that still does Wednesday Warrior. I mean, everything else is in the not omnibus, but the trade format. I mean, it's, a handful of issues, what would be issues, I said. It's collected, it's not the Wednesday Warrior thing. I mean, the Wednesday Warrior thing is stuck around in this market simply because it's been that way for so long.
Right.
And it is, I mean, I would assume let's just talk Marvel because I don't think it would apply to DC quite as well. It's a regular, very regular cash flow advantage. As far as the business perspective goes, that's really, I can't think of another advantage that the Wednesday Warrior thing would have for somebody like a major corporation like Marvel. I mean, selling books every week. I mean, that is a very regular and advantageous cash flow to have.
Right.
But that's obviously how advantageous it is depends on your actual ROI. And obviously DC's is not where they want it to be because we're seeing these changes. So, people have wondered a long time how long the Wednesday New Comic Book Day thing is going to be around in this country because it's just not the case in so many other places. And
it's not,
and I have great affection for Wednesday Warrior, that part of my life. I mean, every Wednesday,
Right.
it's just it's something to look forward to every Wednesday.
right.
I would hate to see that go away, but I would understand if it would. I mean, I'm not gonna, it would be easily understandable.
Well, I guess that's going to depend on when Penguin Random House ships trades, right?
How do you mean?
Well, because for the trades are still going to come out on those Wednesdays. So if you're going to shift to trades, you can still go pick up your trades.
Yeah, but but the interim in between stories, like there's going to be a hell of a lot of Wednesdays. I'm not going to have anything to buy.
Yeah,
you'll be. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, theoretically, as you got out there, the books would be staggered enough that you would have a couple every Wednesday. I would think it should even out, but I could certainly see some Wednesdays where there would be nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to switch to a, let's just call it a trade paperback format.
Yeah,
I mean, there would be no point to shipping every Wednesdays. That would defeat the purpose. I mean, they would go to
a monthly shipment,
at least a monthly. But I mean, if they were going to stay on the Wednesdays shipping, that would completely defeat the purpose of a trade paperback format.
Well,
maybe
I don't know.
From a business perspective,
you would just stagger it you've got so many titles, you would just stagger it. So I'm going to release the
Yeah,
trade
you would
for this
overwhelm
title.
your consumer base, right? If you released it all every month.
Yeah, so I would think that you would release, for a book, for a company. I mean, since we're using Marvel, they're publishing what, like 60 something titles, and that might be putting it lightly. Out of 60 something titles, you just stagger it to where, so Immortal Hulk would come out quarterly, but it's coming out quarterly with, this the same week as 10 other books, and then the next week 10 other trades come out, and so you kind of just stagger it the same way you do with floppies. You just put a longer arc between it. It's not every month that the one title's coming out, but they have enough material. They can put out, 7 or 8 or even 9 or 10 different trade sets
every month.
Yeah, but when you're talking about the business cost of all the labor to do so balanced against the smaller volume of actual sales, because you're I don't know, it just does not seem likely at all to me that they're likely to do that, because the profitability doesn't make sense. You're watering down your profit by, no matter how staggered they are, you're still eating, because there's, you have to have a certain amount of business conducted to justify all the labor costs every week in that process.
Right.
Well, but I also don't see that. I don't think floppies are going away anytime soon either. Like I don't see that happening. I think, especially with a company like, and so what we're talking about now is Marvel's announcement that they've left Diamond and they've signed an exclusive agreement with Penguin Random House. I mean, Penguin Random House is one of the major, book publishers, magazine publishers anywhere. And so I think them stepping in here and saying, hey, like we see value in this. I think that means I don't see them scrapping the model completely. I think they'll change it. I don't know if we'll continue to release stuff every Wednesday like Diamond did, but I think that they'll continue with some form of floppy, and they'll continue sending them out. I don't see them going completely trades. But who knows? They might. I mean, they might look at the numbers. Scholastic sells more. Has some of the best-selling comics in the world, especially in the United States. I mean, Scholastic's graphic novel / kids comic, whatever department. I mean, the numbers that they move is, by and large, way more than whatever your best-selling DC or Marvel book is. So they might look at that and think that's the way to go. But I also think in that scenario, you have to keep in mind too that those books are available in other places.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen soon. I'm just saying that the likelihood that it will happen eventually is high. It's just I think it's a matter of when, not a matter of if. But that being said, something else that, as far as my buying experience goes, and I think I speak for a lot of people here, right now it's a lot easier for me to try out a new book at $4. But if they, when books go to a trade format and they're now $15 or $20, I'm going to be a hell of a lot less inclined to try out a new story at that price tag.
Yeah.
So, my buying would plummet because I try a lot of books out based on that $4 price tag, even though I don't like it being that high.
I think it would have to be similar to what Image does, where they'd give you the first trade at $15. I don't think, if you're selling the first trade at $20, $25, you're absolutely right. But I think
that's what
if you're
Marvel
getting
and DC has done.
Right. But I think if you go to a 100% trade, you would, in order to do exactly what you're saying, which is entice people to give the first story a try, you're going to have to price it better to get people on them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're just going to buy the properties that they know.
Right.
Yeah.
Or for people like me who, like, I don't mind reading digitally. I read digitally all the time. I like comics in kind of any form I can get them, be it paper, in my hands or in my computer. I'll be more inclined to sign up for something like Disney or, whatever, like I said, the unlimited service, where I can read that first issue, 3 months behind, so 90 days behind. Let me go check on here. I've already paid for it, with my monthly subscription. Let me check it out. Oh, I really like this. Okay, so there's 2 trades out already.
Is it only 3 months behind now? Because I thought they were 6 months.
No, Marvel's only 3 months. I don't know about DC. Marvel's only 3 months behind. And so
Okay.
you consider the amount of money that we spend. But this is also, I think this is also a good point too, because I've heard a lot of people, as usual, it's the whole the sky is falling with comic shops. I don't necessarily know that to be true, because I look right now, the amount of money that we spend at our local comic shop on, not only to stay current, but because we like our local comic shop, we want to keep them in business. And you saw people step up and go above and beyond to make sure that they had business during COVID, when new books weren't being shipped anyway. But we do that because we like our local comic shop. I could pay $10 a month, and I have got everything in the world that Marvel has ever published, dating back from 1962 to 3 months before right now. And for $10 a month, I could read that all on my computer at my convenience, not burn any gas, not having whatsoever.
Could you find the middle section of the NAM for me then? Because it's not in there.
I don't. Well, yeah, I'm sure that there's exceptions, but the hell, it may be on there. I don't know. But we pay extra, significantly amount extra, to support our local
to read
comic
it
shops.
now. Yeah,
and
to
our
read
local
it this
comic
week.
shops. Well, not only to stay current, but our local comic shops really are hubs, and there's not any
That's
other
right.
community, like, I can't think of any other retail community that does this, other than maybe game shops, card shops, and there's some brotherhood there as far as the nerd cult.
Well, the three of
goes.
us wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for that community.
Well, and most people, the vast majority of people that walk into a comic book shop to buy comics, they're there because they like buying the physical form of the medium. That's why they're doing it. I mean, and if, let's just paint a picture, if that goes away and it's 100% digital, there's going to be some drop off to readership because of that.
Oh, sure.
People, the Wednesday Warrior thing, the weekly ritual thing is habit, and people go in, talk to other people. What are you reading? And they get talk. If that goes to 100% digital, it's hard to predict what would happen. One, the profitability level for the digital format is much higher. So, it very well be easier to sustain at a lower readership because the profitability is so much higher.
Are you saying because of the cost of actually publishing a physical copy?
You don't have printing costs. You don't have manpower costs.
Yeah, I don't know how much that is for.
Yeah, you don't have the manpower cost of actually printing, but you don't have the manpower cost of the logistics
of shipping and so forth.
Oh, yeah, that's enormous.
Yeah. And
if you keep it at the same price for the digital, your profitability is through the roof. And I'm sure that AT&T is eyeballing that.
If you could come up with the right digital price for comics would last forever, because when you look at some of these that are the free comics, or when they are actually able to track how many times a comic is downloaded illegally, you're talking about 1 million people reading comics.
Comics are going to last forever, period, because it's the market. It's just a matter of what form.
It's this particular version of the industry, whether or not it will change.
Right.
And to the flip side, and we've had this conversation before. I love our comic shop, and I was a Wednesday Warrior for a long time whenever I could be. I'm not there now because of work and school and stuff, but I still, that's where I met you guys. It's where I met some of my best friends.
You chose to be an adult instead.
Weird.
Yeah, it was a mistake. I regret that decision a lot, actually. I'm just tired and cranky. But no, what I was going to say is the other side of that coin is comic shops, and especially without digital, putting digital to the side, comic shops keep a lot of people away from comics.
What?
We've had just hang on, because we've had this conversation before. I am extremely lucky that I walked into, I walked through 3 or 4 comic shops before I got to Kapow. And I almost either went to completely just ordering them from like a service like DCBS or direct mail, because I would walk into comic shops and I would not feel comfortable in those shops, because, you would hear people say things, derogative towards people of color or gay people. That happened in 2 comic shops in Little Rock that are no longer in existence. Then I found Kapow. I found a good comic shop. But even with Kapow, if I hadn't have had the personality type to reach out and talk to you guys, most of what you see is a table sitting there every Wednesday of dudes. mostly straight dudes. Other than 2 or 3 people, it's mostly straight white dudes. That keeps a lot of people.
I want you to know I was
of
the only
comics.
white dude at the table last week. So,
there is some diversity, but a lot of times it's only dudes. So you look at people who really love comics, women, people of color who have been comics readers forever. That's half the reason that comics being born out of like Brooklyn, the Bronx, that Marvel Bronze Age existed because of that readership. Queer people, it keeps a lot of people out when that's all that's there, and so they go to places like online. They go to download them. They find these little either mail order, or they go to manga. Then they find their sequential art other ways. So there's the flip side of that coin.
That's a societal problem.
Issue. Yeah, that's a culture issue,
not a comic specific issue, I would say.
No, it's not. But when your comics are only available through the direct market in comic shops, and 90% of the comic shops are ran the same way and filled by the same people, that has kept a lot of the readership out of that Wednesday Warrior mentality. Now, I think comics are fighting back against that, because you do have shops like Kapow, which are very welcoming. I've been to shops in San Francisco which hold gay comic book clubs.
I think you're projecting your experience on the market as a whole, and I just don't think that's the case. I think most comic book shops are going to be welcoming to anybody that comes in there. I think your experience doesn't speak to the majority of the experience.
Brother, there is not a comic convention to where there are not 3 or 4 panels directed towards people who are marginalized and who don't feel welcome in the comics community. I mean, these are major things that happen all over the place, and that so much so that they are incredibly large talking points in every comics study in colleges right now, in every convention that hold these panels, it's a much bigger thing.
Well, I mean, if they're addressing it, then you just disproved your own point. It's being addressed
to
welcome these people. Yeah, but you're basing you're basing your own experience to the country as a whole, and not fact. I mean, that was your experience in Arkansas. I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's just not a fact that you can speak for the entire market based off of your own local experience.
No, you're right. That is anecdotal. What I'm saying is that experience has been shared time and time again, all over the place. If you go on message boards, it's an experience that is being talked about. And that's an issue with the direct market. That's part of the reason why, especially in queer comics, in comics made by people of color, they're going to the Kickstarter route. That's not the entire reason, but that's part of it. Because it puts comics in the hands of people in places that they're not otherwise welcome. Like I said, this is my experience, my anecdotal experience tends to lead that way, and I'm really lucky. And part of the reason I'm lucky is because I'm also a white dude in those places that I could find my way in with other guys and sit there and talk, and guys who are open-minded and really cool. That is not an experience that's shared or even necessarily common. And like these things are, this is not just me assuming that it is. These are stories that are being told everywhere. It's an actual issue. It's a very large issue. That's why you have these online groups that spring up, as vitriolic as they are, because they feel like their space is being invaded, and that's why they make 6 figures off of it. It's a problem. It's a legitimate problem. And anything you can do to make comics, and the market has to adapt to that, to put not only that, but to a lot of things, to put more comics in more hands for the people who want them at a price that they can pay, in a place that they can read them. And that's how you're going to grow new readers. So it's a weird, flexible, fluid thing that the industry is going to have to adapt to, because you're right, comics are never going to die. But the capitalistic notions behind the way that they're sold now have got to change, and they're being forced to change, and that's what we see. That's what we see right now. So,
I mean, where I'm curious is what is now going to happen to the independent third-party publishers, Image, Dark Horse, those Boom Studios. Are they going? Is Diamond going to be around without DC or Marvel to be able to support that?
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
I don't see them. Yeah, I don't see it.
I
I
think
think
Diamond's dead now. So who's going
Yeah.
to issue? Who's going to distribute these other comics?
Oh, they'll
Well,
sign
I
on with
guarantee you,
Penguin.
or Lunar. Yeah, I guarantee you, emails from all of those offices have been flooding Diamond, or not Diamond, Lunar and Penguin Random House. There's also the possibility that a new distributor pops up, that somebody else sees this vacuum and decides to fill it. So
I will say this, that all of this was brought on by Diamond themselves.
Yep.
Their lack of attention to detail and not caring whether customers got their full orders or not. For years, we've heard in the comic industry how bad Diamond was for the retailer.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the comic companies listened and they've made changes. I don't know that it's 100% because of the retailers. I'm sure it's more financial for their company. But Diamond's done this to themselves.
Yep. No, I don't disagree with that at all. And we've said that for years. Especially since we've been doing the podcast, but since I've known you, we've heard from shop owners, we've heard from just ourselves and our experience with getting books that, look, like it's really unfortunate that there's just only one option, because this one option doesn't care about you.
Well, and we haven't solved that problem.
No.
Well, there's still one option. It's Lunar for DC, and Marvel's distributing from Penguin. So, right. You still don't have multiple options to go buy from the big two, which is the problem. Mm-hmm. Diamond was a monopoly. I know they got around it because you used to be able to subscribe directly and buy your comics directly from the publishers. And that was how they originally got around it. But Diamond's been a monopoly for a long time.
Yep.
And
over 20-something years, 30-something years.
As long as there's a monopoly, they felt like they could do what they wanted. And really, the only way this works is you really need 3 distributors to compete against each other.
Well, and I think that may be where it comes in, as far as, like you said, DC is with Lunar and Marvel's with Penguin Random House. I think that may be a good thing for these third tier and smaller publishers, is that they may be able to negotiate.
You need 3 that will distribute all of the everything. Comics. Yeah. Yes. Not if you just have one company distributing for one publisher, that still leaves you in that same position.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. And so if those other companies don't sign those exclusivity agreements, if they just go and say, hey, you and you, as it stands right now. Yeah. I agree that there needs to be a third tier pop up, but they can right now go to Lunar. Dark Horse can go look at Lunar. They can go look at PR and say, what's your best rate? Negotiate. I'm not going to sign exclusivity agreements. We're going to keep this on the table. And I can go through either one at any time. And you can give me different rates for different parts of the country. I think it gives them some negotiating room, which could be a benefit to these smaller publishers.
Maybe. We'll see.
Again, it's going to be
interesting how it all plays out.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of exclusivity agreements that are more than 3 to 5 years. I think that's the length that an exclusivity agreement should last, because that means you have to keep up quality. Now, that being said, Penguin Random House is known for quality. I think, at least in their book shipping. So I'm hoping that will carry over. They've already announced that, number one, they're not charging for shipping at all, and that they are offering a flat 50% discount. They're not doing a tiered discount rate. But I think as far as keeping the books in healthy shape, they've also announced that they will absolutely not be shipping floppies with like trade paperbacks, with toys, with these other things. The comics will come with comics only. And I think that will help curb a lot of damages. And the fact that they're not charging for shipping too is going to help a lot of these shops.
That is going to suck all the business it can out of Diamond when they announce they're not charging for shipping. I mean, that's going the linchpin. And they're doing specific packaging to prevent damage. I mean, that is just going to suck all the life out of Diamond's
Diamond's
business.
Dead. Yeah.
My question is, are they going to make comics returnable? Because that in and of itself would be huge. If you can make the comics returnable, so that after 3 months, these companies, these smaller shops and stuff can ship inventory back, like they do with a lot of books. Because I know with Penguin Random House and Through Scholastic and everything else with books, you can do that, and they used to do that with comics, and that kind of stopped whenever it became a monopoly.
That's got to be an agreement between the distributor and the publisher,
right?
Because you can't ask the distributor to eat that money.
Well, it's hard to believe that they would do that if they're not charging for shipping. I mean, for them not to charge for shipping and do returnable books, that does not sound economically feasible. I mean, the fact that they can not charge for shipping at all is pretty astounding to me. I'm like, oh my gosh! I mean, that is a huge,
They probably have to have distribution centers all over the country, I would imagine, in order to make that work.
They've announced that they have dedicated a distribution hub solely for this, and I want to say it's up in the Northeast somewhere.
Yeah, but you can still say shipping costs by shipping those from there to different hubs around the country with
and then having them spread
and
out.
Then from there to your local shops, assuming that they're given enough time to make that happen, which they have to in order to have free shipping. The publishers, so in this case Marvel, have to be getting them their books a month ahead of time, I would imagine.
I would think
all in all, it's a very, very interesting time we're at right now
in the
industry. I mean, it is very interesting time in the industry.
I agree.
Also, what's interesting are what books are coming out next week.
Matt is looking at that clock. He said
he is segueing us.
So I'm glad we had this conversation though. Like I always enjoy talking to you guys about this stuff. Just because it is we all have kind of different perspectives on it, and it is such a weird time. But both of you guys are fairly savvy in business and sales. I have a junior understanding of contracts and stuff, and I think we're all fairly smart individuals. And so each of us coming up with different takes just kind of shows how weird and dynamic these times are. So
yeah,
it's an interesting
time to talk about it. It sure is. All right. Well, Matt, since you moved us there, you shifted us there. Next week there are new comics coming out because we are the Wednesday Warriors. It's what we do. It's who he is.
Go ahead. What is coming out next week? One of the three, Matt.
Oh my God! Yeah, you know how tempting it is to steal your books.
Caleb's.
The power in my palm right now.
It's a test.
I mean, this is really what Skeletor was cackling about in all those cartoons.
Have you seen that meme? He says, I don't want to feel good. It's Skeletor. I don't want to feel good. I want to feel evil.
Exactly. So, anywho, I'm looking forward to from Marvel X-Men number 19 by Jonathan Hickman, Mahmoud Esrar, and Lino Francis Yu. Escape from the Vault! ! That is the synopsis of this book.
Is there any word if there will actually be X-Men in that book?
It's alleged that there are.
Oh, okay.
So, Craig has been offended.
Yeah.
Hey, when nobody's an X-Man, everyone's an X-Man.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, go, Caleb.
Better than Avengers.
I mean, you aren't wrong.
I took a dump this morning. It was much better than Avengers.
That was better than dude. Here's how sad the state of Avengers is right now. They've got like their next big thing is coming up, and it's a crossover with like Hyperion and that whole team. And I love that team, like the Squadron Supreme. Like I geek out over those dudes. I could care less. I do not care. And for me not to care when the Avengers are going up against the Squadron Supreme, that says a lot. It's sad.
Well, I heard in a future series that somehow Iron Man was going to get the Hulk's powers.
Of course.
Because I'm making this shit up, because that's what Jason Aaron is doing. He's just giving everybody else's powers. So,
well, speaking of giving people other people's powers, the book that you should pick up next week, the book that you want to, the book that I will judge you harshly for not picking up, comes from the man, the myth, the legend, the badass himself, Mr. Daniel Warren Johnson, and that is none other than the Beta Ray Bill. We've been waiting on this for a minute. Got giddy when we found out he was making it. Dude, I am stoked. I'm a huge Daniel Warren Johnson fan. Like, that man can do no wrong in my book. He just keeps pumping out stuff that I love. His style is mind blowing. It doesn't make any sense how one person can be so talented, and many talents. Dude can shred on guitar. He's got a lovely singing voice. He's a good writer. He's can draw like nobody else. It's stupid. He stole at least like most of the talent that was meant for me. I was supposed to get a little bit of that, and just he took it. And he put it in a Beta Ray Bill, and that's what I'm going to grab.
I'm going to grab a book called Shadecraft from Image Comics. It's Joe Henderson and Lee Garbett. Zadie lives in a small town, and she can swear the shadows are coming to life and watching her and trying to kill her. So how do you fight that? Read issue 1 and find out.
Nice. All right, Matt, I'm going to give you the 4th pick if you want it.
Oh, I'm not doing that shit.
You don't want it?
I'll give you one.
Okay, give me one, Craig.
Because there's not another one out there. From Vault Comics, Witchblood #1.
Nice.
Matthew Ehrman and Lisa Sturl, I think is how you say her name. And it's a mixture of a biker, vampires, and witches. So how can that be bad?
I'm sold. Right there. That's all you had to say.
Yep. And the cover for issue #1, which I'm assuming they'll probably do this for all the issues, looks like a tarot card.
Nice. Well, all right. Well, folks at home, you heard it. Get out to your local comic shop, support them, give them some love, pick up some new books next week. We want to encourage you to do all that, because our local comic shops, as we have talked about, are important, and we should share them and make sure that you're making them really cool spaces to broaden and hang out with the community. It's what it's there for. It's what brought us all together, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So while you're doing that, if you want to talk about what you're reading, you want to suggest reading new things, maybe you read something that's super awesome but nobody else knows about it, you can come tell us about it, and we want you to make a ton of posts, because right now it's like me and 5 other people. it's kind of depressing. We're Bueller, is anybody there? No, make posts, tell us what you're reading. You can do that by going to the search bar on your little Facebook app, type in Southern Fried Geekery, and it'll show up. But you can talk about more things than just comics there. Tell us about what shows you're watching. It really is a space for like the entirety of this kind of culture that we share. You can check out images of what we're reading and stuff like that on both our Twitter and our Instagram. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. And if you got any comments, concerns, if you are an indie creator, somebody who doesn't have a contract with somebody, big publisher, and you're trying to get word of mouth out, you should shoot us an email with like a PDF of your stuff at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. We will read it and we'll talk to you, and maybe we can either get you on the show, or at the very least, we'll talk about your book on the show. We'll give it some love. We'll tell people where they can find it. We'll help spread that word, because community is the important part of this culture. Everything else aside, the business part of it, that's important. It's not to say it's not, but the community is the most important part of it. Sorry about the technical difficulties that we have experienced here, and so hopefully we'll get that solved, and AT&T will fuck all the way off my street and not steal my internet anymore. And other than that, going to go forth, and we're going to love some comics, right, Craig? Woo! There you go. Hey, Jerry.